Welcome back to Mediaweek. Well, time now for a look at the latest newspaper and magazine circulation and readership numbers with our co-host James Manning from Mediaweek. James, of course, these are the first ones for the year. They're for December.
Yeah, December half year, yep.
Let's have a look through. We'll start with newspapers, national first. What were we seeing there? Seem to be some falls there in circulation?
In circulation, lots of falls. Really, the West Australian was the only sort of newspaper that didn't report a negative figure. But we should keep in mind the digital figures for a lot of these papers have somewhat offset these sort of substantial circulation falls for the print publications.
And just looking at readership as well, how did that fare for the papers?
Readership wasn't quite so grim. There was a few things that did well. The Australian did pretty well on readership, especially when you factor in the readers they're getting for their digital and online as well. And the Financial Review on weekdays sort of held in there too, but some of the Fairfax titles, again, pretty grim readership figures there.
And certainly for the Sunday papers.
Sure, yes, yep.
Let's have a look at magazines, and in terms of best-selling titles, obviously Australian Women's Weekly there at #1 spot.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, that held up. Pretty flat circulation there, which wasn't a bad result from them. Better Homes and Garden edged up a little bit. The weeklies like Women's Day, New Idea, That's Life too, all down quite considerable there, really.
And in terms of the biggest rises that we saw,
yeah,
Game
again,
Informer?
specialist titles do the best. Things like, Game Informer, Australian Photography, Real Living, lifestyle magazines for Bauer did pretty well. Real Living and Bell, both in the top 5. The monthly there too, doing quite nicely in Circ. And
the biggest falls that we saw in circulation in magazines there? Sport Fishing Australia, down about 35%?
Yeah. Quokka, which has had a few issues. That's sort of Seven West Media. A few issues about sort of digital competition over there, which is not doing well.
And in terms of readership in magazines, what are we seeing there in terms of those top titles?
Again, Women's Weekly, Women's Day sort of dominating there. A couple of Bauer titles. Better Homes and New Idea still big audiences. New Idea down a little bit there. Readership rises. Again, specialist titles, Hyper. Healthy Food, a Game Informer again, Men's Fitness, another little independent there, doing quite nicely.
And in terms of falls, where were the biggest readership falls?
Foxtel magazine, but then it's not surprising, a lot of people are using the EPG now, so they don't really maybe need their Foxtel magazine like they used to.
All right, well, let's just stay in the sector and turn to the bid to sell the benefits of the magazine industry. The Magazine Publishers of Australia relaunching this month with a new look and an advertising campaign. Robin Parks, Executive Director of MPA, joins us now to tell us more. Robin, thank you so much for coming on the show. Just how much of a challenge is it to come on board and relaunch the Magazine Publishers Association in such a tough ad climate, and when we're seeing magazine circulations falling and the biggest publisher, Bauer, closing some titles too? Yeah,
well, it's certainly an interesting time in magazines, and the MPA has been dormant for the last few years, and the 3 publishers have got together and resurrected the MPA so that they have a voice in the industry. And that's been the premise of our new campaign, is to have that voice out there and to talk to advertisers and to deliver the message of the effectiveness of the communication media.
So who are the three people involved, and what's the sort of key focus early on?
Yeah, so our 3 stakeholders are Pacific, Bauer and News Life Media, and the focus is on demonstrating the effectiveness, as I said, to the advertisers. Our issues around not so much the audiences, because the readership figures, as you mentioned, they're remarkably flat, and circulation only being down 4% year on year and 1% period on period is actually a reasonable sign for our industry. So, it's demonstrating that readers are still, engaged in magazines, and 60% of magazine titles had rises in our readership in the last result. So we're quite happy with that. Our audiences are there, and they're targeted and an engaged audience, and our issue is with advertisers. So our campaign is very focused on the advertising market. It's a trade campaign to demonstrate that effectiveness.
Do you get any sense that the advertisers, that their sentiment might shift this year?
I think it's a bit of an education piece. I mean, the advertisers are facing tough times. I mean, when you're in a market that you are scrutinising your marketing spend, magazines have been hit hardest in this market because it's easier to justify a spend with a more measurable medium such as digital. But we believe that's overlooking the quality of our audiences. Our audiences are deeply engaged audiences, and the size and depth of our our audience is at a disconnect with the dollar spend that's shifted out of magazine advertising.
You mentioned engagement. Is that one of the key things you'd point out to when you're going in? You're giving a talk to some buyers or something about, look, maybe you're not putting enough of your investment in magazines?
Yeah, remembering that, the holy grail in advertising is when they can have content that blurs with the advertising that blurs with content and it doesn't look like it's a hard sell. So magazines have always been the experts at doing that. I mean, you only have to look at a Vogue or Harper's Bazaar reader, that they are as equally engaged with the glossy ads as they are with the editorial. It's a very fluid experience. It's it's a medium where advertising isn't seen as disruptive to the audience. So we think our engagement is one of our key selling points from that aspect. And remembering it's a paid for medium. We're not a free medium. So in a consumer time where the discretionary spending is really tight, for our readership to stay flat, that's a great sign of confidence in our marketplace. We're a premiumly priced investment, and we've been consistent.
Just looking, obviously your members are pretty fierce competitors. Is it tough trying to, remind them of the common bonds or find
Look,
common bonds?
I think they have such mutual respect for each other that they get on really well, and it's about the common good of they're very passionate about our industry and our medium, that they want to work together to deliver that messages. Now, gloves are off when we start talking about share of the pie, and they can each fight for their share of the pie, but it's about protecting our medium and our industry because, they truly have faith in it.
Audited numbers for digital editions of magazines are still very tiny, I guess, in its very early days in the development there. Are you quite confident we're going to see that sort of growth?
I think we'll see our exponential growth coming from digital, but I also think, that this is consumer driven. So we can put, AWW, the Women's Weekly, is top-selling masthead. It's on digital and it's still only doing 1 to 2%. So, the consumers are lagging behind the technology in their behaviour a little bit, and I think sometimes as marketers we forget that. We get so invested in the advanced technology that we sometimes forget that there's a lag of catch-up time. So I think that technology will see our exponential growth come from that, but it's going to be a slow burn. People still appreciate the tactile qualities of a printed magazine.
Robin, thank you so much for coming in to
Thank
talk
you
to
very
us
much.
today.
Lovely to speak to you both.
Robin Parks from MPA. Now, just staying with magazines, and James, interesting because we were talking about this last week about the end of Burke's Backyard as a magazine. Don Burke's actually been coming out and talking about the demise and certainly some of the events surrounding the magazine.
Yeah, he talked a little bit about Kerry Packer and all the years. He started under Kerry Packer, of course, and built the TV show, and he said, look, when Kerry left, or when Kerry died, in fact, there was a bit of a management vacuum, and he said only recently he thinks the TV and the magazines have recovered and finding their feet again.
Just staying in the print industry, well, Sydney Confidential, the brand's now gone to 7 days a week, added 4 pages to the Sunday Telegraph. Yeah,
it's something the News Limit obviously feel, and the publishers and editor of the Daily Telegraph really think that's a big future for them in this sort of celebrity gossip, and they perhaps haven't been maximising it as well as they have. I mean, in the past, the Herald Sun in Melbourne sort of been the leader in that sort of celebrity news and information. It used to sell a lot of newspapers for it. Now the Telly's really grasped it with both hands and using that Confidential brand, and the sort of star journalists are working across all days on the newspaper, not just on sort of special days of the week. They're getting their own bylines within that Sydney Confidential, and the stories are making page 1, so they're really seeing that as a driver to hopefully build circulation.
In radio, of course, big story this week has been the switch in terms of the ratings provider.
Yeah, look, Nielsen sort of bye-bye after 60 odd years or something, providing of radio ratings and data that the radio industry uses to get their advertising dollars. GfK's been given a 3-year contract, sort of German-based, now global sort of research company. They're going to develop an e-diary, which will be able to use across mobile devices for people to sort of record their listening habits.
And just finally, John Porter, of course, used to run Ausstar, and now he's going to work with Liberty Global.
Yeah, they were the major shareholder, of course, Ausstar for a long time, so he's going sort of back into the fold there. He's going to give up his chairmanship here, we believe. Hasn't been sort of officially confirmed, but it looks like it's going to happen.
All right, just quickly to TV and a look at the ratings for free-to-air Week 7 there. First top 10, My Kitchen Rules, taking out the top 4 spots.
It's all about 7, that top 5.
And elsewhere in there as well, 7 with what, 4?
Yeah.
And having a look at subscription TV, top 10 for week 7 there, NAB Cup.
Yeah, first AFL footy of the year, and it sort of dominated already. I think there was only 6 games on those 2 days we cover in these ratings, and footy had 6 matches that are all in that top 10.
And just very quickly, some news from TV. Adam Boland to quit 7, and this time it seems like it is actually happening.
Yeah, he's sort of been tentatively leaving a few times before, but this time he's really sort of, no, that's it for me. He's going a bit of a holiday, a bit of speculation he might end up at 10. 10, you know, when they dropped their breakfast show last year, they did say, look, we'd probably give this another go next year, so Adam's probably the person to do it.
James, as always, thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Bridie.
James Manning there from Media Week. That's all we've got time for from the team here. Thanks for your company.